A pleasure today to be joined by James from NZ Cheese. Good to see you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Luke. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Now, you've recently been through our 90-day action business planning that we do with clients. And I wanted to, now that you've out the other side of it for a bit now, I wanted to pick your brains about how you found it. And we'll get into some of that. But I think firstly, let's find out a little bit more about what it is that you do.
Yeah, thanks. So I started New Zealand Cheese 7 years ago, and as a company, we buy from small little producers around New Zealand, bring it up into Auckland, and distribute from there around the country, distributing to chefs, like restaurants, into delicatessens and sort of small supermarket chains, and also export a bit of cheese as well to Australia. So yeah, I guess it's a sort of middleman between the small little producer and people wanting to access quality New Zealand cheese.
So that allows you to do volumes that I assume some of these smaller producers just can't get to because they're focused on the manufacturing side.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was that. Like my background was as a cheesemaker, and just seeing the difficulty. You can only do so much. These small food producers or small cheesemakers. So I offer them some of their revenue, which they can just ship off in bulk to me and not have to worry about doing the sales and distribution for that part of their turnover. And that allows me to bring cheese up in bulk. And then, like, some of the cheese is quite big, right? So I can cut them up and distribute a little bit here, a little bit there. For chefs and retailers, it allows them to access a wide range of producers and just getting it from one spot, especially when like freight and shipping around New Zealand is a real cost and a real issue. So if we can consolidate that, especially for cheesemakers who are in a different island, or that can be expensive, so trying to get around that as well.
I imagine some of the chefs at the eventual usage of the cheese are pretty stoked that they can access some pretty good quality cheeses.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a big part of the joy for me as well, personally, in the business, is seeing what those chefs do. Like, I understand cheese, I understand those flavor profiles, and then I absolutely love working with chefs who you get to see what they do because their flavor understand their broader flavor profile understanding is so good. So they'll match it with things, and cheesemakers love it as well to see how it's used, where it ends up. It's really interesting ingredient.
And why cheese, mate, of all things?
It wasn't a very linear path. I think about 10, 11 years ago, I started cheese making in Europe. And at that stage, it was just to get closer to the source to eat more, pretty much, because for the first time I traveled there, going to Italy and seeing the range of cheese products, it blew me away. And then cheese making was a really good combination of, I'd studied science at university, but it's also quite a physical job. In quite a tactile thing, so I really enjoyed that. And then the cheese distribution thing came a bit later in London, working there and getting exposed to Michelin star restaurants, and that really opened my eyes. And then coming back to New Zealand, um, I pretty much started this business to give myself a job, really, because there's not many jobs doing this.
Yeah, I was going to say your business is very unique, right? In that there aren't too many people doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So it's hard. You can't. I think there is a saying like, don't start a business to give yourself a job, but it is
But
essentially
you love it.
to keep working. I really enjoy working with my customers, and I'm really, really passionate about my suppliers and the people I get to represent and promote.
I think that's the beauty of business, mate, because if we think about this, if it wasn't for you, these chefs wouldn't have access to the product that they now have access to, which means that people like me, when I go to a restaurant and don't really understand the stuff, but go, wow, this tastes amazing. This is, this is crazy. But you have the knowledge. I don't have the knowledge. So then I get that experience. But if it weren't for you, you wouldn't be linking up the producer of the cheese with that person to get it to the end customer for that person to then have a great experience.
That's as a middleman, you have to provide that value. There has to be a reason for you to get a margin, and I mean the first couple of years I started with no customers, so I'd try to get involved in any situation possible to move some cheese. And as it's gone on, I've got a lot better and a bit more opportunity to really now identify where I do add value, and then trying to be better at seeing opportunities coming along, but kind of saying, oh, this doesn't, what I offer as a model doesn't actually, that isn't going to fit here. There's better solutions for the potential customer. So yeah, that's been a big part of the journey, is learning about those different opportunities and then being more selective.
Nice. So not everything's a sale, basically. You're actually trying to point them in the right direction of where they're going to get the best, like their solution that they're after.
Yeah, absolutely. And not getting myself into situations where I might grow revenue, but actually not grow profit. It might be a really difficult customer to service or look after. So yeah, and it might just, yeah. I'm grateful as well that I'm my number one passion is promoting New Zealand cheese. So if there is a better solution that also achieves that same goal, I'm happy to tell people about it.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, mate. There'll be a lot of cheese lovers listening and watching to this. One, favorite cheese. And two, what is a cheese that we must try that many Kiwis perhaps haven't?
Probably, yeah. The first question is probably something you get asked a lot, and it's difficult because this the small producer I work with, there's so much variation batch to batch. At the moment, it's spring, so we've just got like fresh goat's milk, fresh sheep's milk cheeses coming through. So that's really what I'm enjoying at the moment, like really fresh spring style cheeses. And I think a style of cheese that's growing in New Zealand are called washed rinds. So they're a bit like a brie and camembert, but instead of having mold on the outside, they've got bacteria. So things overseas like Taleggio or something like that. So they can be a bit stinky and a bit more oozy, and they're slowly starting to grow in a bit of momentum here in New Zealand, which is good to see.
So that's the second one, what we should be trying.
Yeah, yeah. Wash Ryan. There's a really good one called Wildfire from the cheesemakers called Little River, but there's a lot, and yeah, just a new sort of category that you don't get exposed to a lot growing up in New Zealand. So
Okay, righto. I'll have to branch outside of my Eden and my
yeah,
mild.
so
Yeah, the three things that I grew up thinking about.
yeah,
Mate,
me too.
so turn your attention then to what was it and where were you at where you got in touch and reached out for some help?
Yeah, so I guess that's about six years in, and like I'd listened to a lot of you guys' podcasts. So I had been involved,
Mm,
um, sort of in your area of insurance influence for a long time, and I guess I passionate about cheese, but I also love business. Like I really, really enjoy it. I enjoyed listening to it, talking about it, thinking about it. Um, you know, it creates a lot of different complex problems to solve all the time, especially running your own business. So, and I find that fascinating. And so I think that was a really good way for me to know what you and Phil sort of where you sat on a lot of things, and they really did match up a lot of things that I was thinking, and then you hear some other people saying, and it's really sort of validating. The first couple of years, I'd spent a bit of money invested that with a guy to help me learn about sales more, and that was really beneficial for me. And then I had a couple year period there where I did get connected with a mentor through Export New Zealand, did that, and then I hadn't really um, spent any money in the space um, or looked for external sort of input for a year or two. So it's definitely Joe. And then I think a couple of things around like revenue hadn't grown for the last year, which it was an unusual place for me to be in because starting a business from zero, you get used to revenue growth all the
mm.
time. And it just felt like there are a few things that it would be helpful to talk to and helpful. It was just a really good time like for me. Like winter's a quiet time, had the capacity, had the space,
Yeah.
and so it's beneficial, yeah, to put the investment back into myself really.
So one of those things, as you say there, I think you were getting a bit frustrated about how your revenue wasn't growing, especially as fast as it's potentially been growing previously, right? Because the business has been maturing. So I know we focused quite a bit of time on that. Can you point to anything where what we spoke about really changed your thinking around it or impacted that situation?
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely a big mindset piece around, how I sort of mentally felt around the business was doing, and that can be really difficult. I found that a real challenge at the start as well, like being really mentally involved in how the business's performance, and that can have quite effect on you as a person.
Mm.
Um, and especially when you start, you just need growth to survive. It'd be quite daunting. So this was a different challenge, I think, and maybe some of the ideas and mindset I had used for growing the business for the first 5 or 6 years, all about growth, sales. That mindset might have needed to change a little bit more when you mature into, like, the business is actually established. You don't have to think about survival
Mm.
all the time. And I still had a bit of a hangover from those sort of thoughts. And I think you sort of looked at a lot and said, well, there's things that aren't measured in the profit and loss. So I was probably just focused too much on a profit and loss. And you're like, well, are you measuring some of the things that you set out to do? They're not a financial measure, but you can be successful, for instance, in, having control over my time and having a bit more resilience in the business by employing someone as well. So it's not all on my shoulders. Like, these other things that have happened that I probably had lost sight of a little bit and not appreciated.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught in the trap of number go up. And I love that
Mm,
saying, but it's basically just, focusing on is our revenue growing? Because it's basically how the world's wired, right?
yeah.
GDP and what things are growing, and we're constantly looking at that. But we step back for a bit, and the big part of this business for you, mate, was being able to control your time, right? And build something that allowed you to have the lifestyle that you wanted and work in your passion. And you did all the hard work to get there. So I'm sort of thinking, mate, like, well, where to from here? You give yourself some credit.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think perspective is such a difficult thing in business for a owner operator, because it's you like, oh, we're a order fulfillment business. So often we just focus on what are we doing tomorrow, what orders are going to come in, what cheeses got to go out, and things like that. So that's the big benefit for me of having external input, is to put perspective in it, and to force me to think again, what were the objectives what were my goals and aims when I started the business,
Mm.
not just profit and loss, and looking at those.
And then one of the things that we spoke about was being able to tell your story a bit more, and just how you've got such a cool and unique business that would be great for socials. And you don't really need to do that as such. So it's one of those things we're like, oh yeah, like I could do that. I don't necessarily need to, because you've got a proven way that you bring revenue through the business. But you were basically like, okay, I'll take your word for it. I'll go away and do it, right?
Yeah, that's how I didn't quite get to doing TikTok, but we, I'm really grateful for that. That was probably the final push I needed for an idea that I'd been thinking and talking about, and had been on the back of the mind. And you sort of identified that I'd spent no money on
Mm.
marketing throughout the whole journey. So there was capacity there to do it, and it was achievable. It wasn't a big financial burden, and sort of, it was definitely something. I mean, I sort of anticipated going into it like, oh, I'd be a bit concerned putting yourself out there, and then I think I told you after I did it and released it, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
It was like that fear leading into it, and then afterwards, it's incredible how little I thought or worried about that.
But so that was in the first session. At week 6, we came back and I gave you a bit of pre-work before we caught up. And I'm pretty sure from memory you were like, I've ticked that off. I've done 20 videos. Is that right?
I think, yeah. That was it. Like, a lot of the ingredients were already in place. So it was about just actually doing it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
lucky to have a friend, a videographer, and so I've been talking to him about doing it. So it was about just actually saying, okay, we'll come down. We spent today and just made 20 something little 15-second videos, which is, I didn't probably appreciate how much content. I'm pretty stocked up for a few months, which is good.
Yeah, well, I was like reading it. I'm like, does he mean two, or like he's planning on he's mapped out 20, or
Yeah.
yeah, outstanding. I've never seen someone basically come back and be like, yep, bang, like you've done that. But I think that's not an isolated thing, because the second part is that I don't know if we won't go too much into the detail, but you've got some life changes coming up too in the future. And so you're basically like, right, I'm going to start building the business around those changes ahead of time. And so we identified some things that you need to do. And long story short, you've got to meet with a heap of chefs and restaurant owners, right? And you're like, yep, sweet, went there and have done X amount. And I'm thinking, man, sometimes we can't even convince a client to do one reach out to somebody. So do you think two things? Are there any lessons in there for other people about how you've become comfortable in that business development slash maybe selling and just rolling into a restaurant, say?
Yeah, I think identifying when I first started that I had no idea about sales. My back going to university or working as a cheesemaker, or then I ran the wholesale cheese distribution thing in London. Like none of that had been around sales. So it
Mm,
was about a year or so into identifying, I'm a bit lost here. And so I did find someone and put a bit of money behind it. And that just gave me a bit of a system and a bit of sales routine to go through. And it made it a lot more comfortable. And that helped me through that next few years. And now, just having done it so much, I'm a lot more comfortable. Yeah, and just knowing how the whole meeting's going to go and being a lot more observant. Oh, this will happen, and then this, and this is the outcome.
yeah,
So there's that, and then I am very fortunate that selling and promoting New Zealand cheese is something I just want to do anyway, and I also really enjoy hospitality. I'm fascinated by the industry that I supply, so I really do enjoy getting out there and talking to people.
yeah, you've got the passion element too, which helps. But I think what you say is really important. Where almost not knowing how to do something is freeing, because I think a lot of people try and pretend that they know about different things that they actually have a blind spot in, and that actually hurts them because they then don't go and try and get the knowledge of, okay, how could I do this better? And the
Mm,
amount, yeah, of times where we see business owners trying to sort of fib their way through an area, and you kind of think, why not just accept that you don't know, and
yeah.
that's going to make you feel better, and then you can get some help from somebody who does know, and then you get to practice it, and then it compounds over time.
That's it. I imagine for you, seeing small business owners, you probably never met the complete package, right? Someone who's perfect and everything. But it's good to identify your strengths and understand those, and quickly identify the areas you do need improvement in, and looking to make an investment
Yeah.
into those.
I think sales is one of those areas too where all Kiwis don't get taught how to do that, because
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know, it just seems to be the yuck word and the negative connotations and stuff. But when you're a business, and especially like yourself starting something from scratch, well, no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah, that's it. And for me, it was really important trying to understand customers. It came down to that, like I sell business to business. So just trying to find the problem as
Mm,
quickly as possible and understand the problem that a potential customer would have, and then identifying, do I have the solution or not? Because if you can identify the problem, offer them the solution, you know,
it's not really selling. Yeah.
yeah, you're kind of helping each other, and likewise, identifying people that don't have a problem, and then you say, well, I've got a solution, but you don't have the problem, or the problem's different, or maybe we'll talk again in the
Yeah.
future when I do have the solution for you.
I think so many people could learn something from what you just said. The unfortunate thing is, I think a lot of people do it the reverse way. They build something that they want to do that is a solution for them that they like, and they don't actually try and find people that have a problem and see, do you need my solution? They're basically just, hey, I've built this. Like, why won't you pay money for it? You're like, whoa, hang on. And the amount of DMs and emails and stuff where that's the approach is basically, I've got this, you need to care, give me money. I'm like,
Yeah,
hey, I don't need this. Well, you must, because you're an accountant. Well, but you're this age or whatever, and you kind of think, wow, what the, like, reverse the whole thing, and it becomes so much simpler. listening to people, asking them what their problems are, and do you actually have the solution? And if not, well, then help them find someone who does.
Adapting, I guess, and that's the key. I probably was a bit like that when I started because I didn't
Mm.
really know the problem yet. It was only through going out to talk to people. So initially, probably my solution was a bit off. So it was a process
Yeah.
to get there and understand it, and that adaptability and change. And that still happens for me in business now, like trying to pay attention what's going on out there and trying to fine tune what we're doing
Mm.
all the time to get better solutions.
One of the other things we touched on, mate, and it sort of ties into this is basically if you could only do an hour of extra work in the business a day, for instance, what could you do with that hour? And I think you're very good at condensing work into a small space so that you keep those clear defined boundaries of why you set the business up, right? So you've basically got some hours that you allocate for work, and then outside of it's life, family, etc. And you could identify, yeah, I probably could squeeze these a bit more, and then bang, you're smacking through business development meetings and making reels and doing all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, that probably was a challenge, identifying that when we on the operational side and sort of order fulfillment, we're always trying to get things more efficient because that's our overhead.
Yeah.
The better we can condense things, the better we can organize it, the more profitable we can be doing it, and the better it runs, and we get better outcomes. But that mindset's useful in that scenario. But yeah, you're right.
Mm.
It can't also other things do need to take time, like the business development and things like that. So yeah, I think that was a really clear little takeaway. Just put another hour and just take it on somewhere, and you
Mm.
can always find that.
And your business is quite great now that it's established and that we could quite easily forecast cash and revenue, expenses, money in, money out, and get a really good picture at that at sort of any one time, right? Of basically, hey, here's what the next 3, 6, and even 12 months are going to look like. And we got to scenario plan some different things that you might think about in the future as well.
Yeah, that's and maybe that was a bit of I've always been a bit hesitant around business planning or getting too focused on modeling things out on the future. And I know probably accountants do to like doing that, and
Yeah.
it's not something I've ever used, especially at the beginning, because I didn't need to model things out. I just needed to go sell cheese to make
Mm.
business. Um, so it was good. I mean, it was good to always reflect back on that. But I also enjoyed that. Yeah, we could look at immediate near term things to do,
Yeah.
and not so much just looking at a cash flow forecast as well. Although,
Yeah.
yeah, I think in different scenarios for different businesses, they're probably more use in some scenarios than others, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, and they tie in together. I think for you it was figuring out, like we said before, not just sales going up, but how can we maintain the profitability? So then we were spending more time thinking about margin, historic
Mm.
margins, future margins. Okay, what's going to put impact on those costs? And does that then mean that your prices need to change? And when you focus on your margin, then everything should work in your business. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the margin as a trader. Margin is the single most important thing.
Did the 90 days that we worked together, mate, did it your expectations from the start differ to the work that we did and what you got in terms of outcomes?
Um, yeah, it was good. That it was quite practical. I think perhaps it was a slightly more difficult for you in a way that there weren't potentially any big glaring things that you could pick up straight away and make big changes. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I came into doing this work with you, not in a lot of it was trying to be more proactive rather than reactive. Um, so and a big part of it was probably um, a bit of validation. Like it is good to get external people. There's a question I struggle with in business. People always ask you, "Oh, how's it going? How's it going?" But, and it's so difficult to condense that down for someone who hasn't been around it. And I really enjoy talking about business. So I really do enjoy talking about my own business, but it's hard to bring someone up to speed There's a lot going on in terms of the history and the whole financial position, opportunities. So just the opportunity, like I think you did a great job of getting yourself up to speed really quickly with where the business was. So it meant the conversations we got to have were had a lot of, whereas we just being able to have really in-depth conversations about my own business with someone else is a luxury, and it's not something I get to do all the time. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and having those conversations with you allowed me to pull a lot of the ideas out of myself, really, like having those deep, thorough conversations. It helps you to understand things as well.
I don't think anyone's ever said that having a conversation with me is a luxury, mate, but I'm probably gonna have to clip that bit out.
Yeah.
So obviously through the 90 days, because it goes quick, but enough support. How would you describe the support you received from us throughout it?
About spot on. I probably could have. I think it's hard to probably set that time frame for different businesses. I probably could have spent it over 6 months because there weren't a lot of urgent things that we were doing. But on the other hand, 90 days is probably a good amount, potentially shorter than wanted, but it made me do actions, not sit between those meetings and say, I'll do that next week, I'll do that next week. Because like I could sort of come out straight in the meetings like, oh, I might as well just head on to that next week because I'll be seeing Luke in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so try to get ahead of it.
Good man. And that's hopefully part of the plan with the way that we put it together. But yeah, you certainly took a lot of action, mate. So what's next for NZ Cheese and for James?
Continue to grow. So we talked about opening a depot in Christchurch in the South Island next year. So it's about making sure Auckland runs really well over the next few months. I've got a second son coming in March, so get everything really well organised before then and up and running and get through next year, really.
Good man. Love that. All right, your chance to share some wisdom. Any pieces of advice you would leave for business owners in general from your journey?
Yeah. But probably struggle. I still feel like I'm really at the beginning of what I'm doing, and this 90-day thing has been worthwhile for me to realize, okay, I'm out of one phase, which is the starting a business, and now I'm into this kind of next phase, which is beginning to run an established business. But there's still a long way to go. So I've got maybe I'll have wisdom in another couple of decades. But I think reflecting on this, like the benefit of trying to identify areas to invest in yourself and in the business, and then working towards putting the money aside or finding the time that's right and engaging someone. Because I think if you've identified an area you need work on, you find the right person to help you work on that, you can't go backwards, really.
Nice. That's a great way to put it. Well, thank you for your time. And yeah, it was a pleasure to be able to spend some with you and see everything that you've done and where you've got to from nothing. I think it's inspiring for so many people. You probably take it for granted now because you're just so far deep in it. But what you've done is pretty cool to come back and go, right, I'm going to build a business around something that I'm really passionate about, and you can earn good money doing that, and you have built something that really looks after the life that you want, and not many people can say that. So well done. And if people want to keep an eye on you,
Luke.
No worries.
I was going to say the same thing to you, pretty much, because you guys have been in business about the same time. So I think everything you probably just said to me, you could very much apply to yourself and you guys going out and helping small businesses and small business improve in New Zealand is a really noble thing.
Well, much like you being massively passionate about cheese, mate, I think we're massively passionate about small business owners and trying to give them the tools that they need to, get some of the things from their business that they set out to when they start, because it's a big risk. And like you said before, it's never ending, no matter what year you get to. So if we can do a bit of that, it's good. if people want to keep an eye on you, mate, NZ Cheese on Instagram, for instance, soon to be TikTok, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, that's next year. Yeah. New Zealand cheese or nzcheese.co.nz.
Yeah, awesome. There's some cool videos that you've got around the different cheeses, and even I obviously got to spend time with you, but I'm like, oh mate, I didn't even know that cheese got cut like that. What is that thing? So you might...
But that was kind of taken on from you guys, trying to give value to people is a great way when you sort of explain that around the marketing piece, and then it's what you guys do. And that's probably the other thing, like so many things we talked about. You weren't talking about theory. You were talking about literally things that nextAdvisory had done. You had tried, it had worked, and that's when that device comes from that place. There's a lot of value attached to that.
Yeah, we've spent the tens of thousands of dollars testing the dumb shit that doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So that clients don't always have to. Cool, mate. All right. Well, NZ Cheese, for those people watching from home that want to and listening, check out what you're up to and where you get to. And you can even buy some things off of the website. It's a smaller range, obviously, there, but I'm sure the odd person may want to as they head into these new seasons, mate.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, mate. We'll stay in touch.
Cheers. Thanks, Luke.